Welcome to another episode of Around the Grounds with the Property Baron. It's the 2nd of April, 2026, day after April Fool's Day. I'm Jason Barron, and each week I'm joined by Nick Meredith, our Brisbane partner, and Hugo Fonseca, who leads the Property Baron Invest. This is where we catch up and share what we've been seeing around the grounds from Brisbane, Sunshine Coast, and Noosa, and also the investment space across the country. No headlines, no hype, just real conversations, real insights on what's actually happening on the ground in the property market right now. So let's go around the grounds. Good morning, Nick and Hugo.
Morning, Jason. How you go?
Morning, Jazz. Morning, Nick.
How's things?
Yeah, going well.
Good up here in sunny Queensland. Everything seems to be ticking along reasonably well. There's a little bit of skepticism and that out there, but certainly in Brisbane over the last 7 days, I must say I haven't really noticed it too much.
No, same up here on the Sunshine Coast. It's still pretty positive. I think what's happening out there in the big wide world is not really filtering down just yet into the market. How you finding the investment space at the moment, Hugo?
Yeah, similar. Look, it's what we've spoken about in the last couple of podcasts as well. In uncertainty and whenever there's instability, people tend to move towards more stable and resilient hard assets, and property is one of them. So I think that'll remain strong, and that's what you see all the commentary being around. That's happened in the past, and it'll keep happening. Property is not like shares. You don't wake up one morning and just go, oh no, my property's just dropped by 15% or 20% overnight. So it's stable, it's resilient. So it doesn't really surprise me that there's still people out and about and wanting to get into real estate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's what we're finding at the moment. The agents are still pretty confident with their listings. Some listings we're finding have not got as many offers on them as what they probably usually would. So some good buying opportunities out there, but the market's still ticking over pretty well up on the Sunshine Coast. What about you, Nick? How's Brizzy?
Yeah, it's interesting, Jace. There's obvious. I think it's a two-speed market down in Brizzy at the moment. The first home buyer entry-level market's super strong. I think there's a real opportunity in the higher end of the market for buyers at the moment. Probably getting more off-market properties in the prestige area than we've ever had before. We're working on one at the moment that is an off-market and potentially a really good opportunity that we're working with the client. Confidentiality is a really important thing for this individual. So working really hard on that. But that's an opportunity that I don't think a few months ago probably would have been available. Just a few changes in the market. And just talking to agents, there does seem to be more off-market properties becoming available. Now, that's something that we obviously buy a lot of off-market properties. It's not the be-all and end-all. It doesn't necessarily mean they're the best buy sometimes, but it is the opportunity, particularly in the prestige side of the market, to get access to properties that the general public looking in that section may not get access to. And this is an example of that we're working on right now.
Yeah, just without going into obviously the too much information with the confidentiality side of things, but that was pretty exciting, that particular story where you got access to an off-market one at a fairly high value, and we had a client that it seemed to be perfect for, and you sort of matched the two, and hopefully you can get a result out of it, Nick.
Yeah, today will tell. I think we'll probably either get it done or we'll move on to another one today. But reasonably confident we'll get it done today. So fingers crossed. We're getting to the pointy end now. Really good client, really switched on client, knows exactly what they're looking for. Been difficult to find for them because they're in a really small pocket they want to buy in, and when those properties in that pocket come to market, they're gone very quickly. So managing to secure this one potentially off market has really been the key to it.
Yeah, really good. What else happening in Brizzy?
Well, we were out and about, as I said last week. What has probably changed, I think, in the last 2 weeks is the amount of calls coming from selling agents asking if we have a buyer to match the properties that they've got. Previous to that, we were doing the searching, everything else. Do you have anything coming up? Now it seems to have slightly flipped where they're contacting us on a little bit of a higher rate. So that's interesting. That's probably a little bit of a switch in the market. Particularly, I'm noticing that from $2 million to $3 million in that sort of not a little spot, but that area of the market now. There's some really great opportunities for clients if they're looking in there, because that's where I think is really the sweet spot of the market at the moment.
Very good.
I think that's a really important point, Nick, and where our relationships with selling agents really come into play as well, right? In a hot market, it's easier, I guess. With this uncertainty, what we're seeing is possibly people holding off from listing their properties. So it's a different market. It's not a worse or a better market. It's a different dynamic. But having those relationships, and as you mentioned, the selling agents reaching out and not speaking to them really helps still make sure that whoever is in the market or is interested in selling or buying can still get really good opportunities, and we can work closer with those agents because they know that we have qualified buyers that are ready to go and they're in the right position to be able to, in my case, invest, in your case, buy their home. And the selling agents appreciate that as well. So yeah, working really closely with them, I think, is a real plus.
Yeah, for sure. I guess up here on the Sunshine Coast, it's been a pretty exciting week for us up here. We've got a couple of deals done. One in particular, I thought it was probably worth sharing. We bought at auction on the Sunshine Coast. It was a commercial site. It was a pretty high profile site locally on the Sunshine Coast. I'd been in the media and a few things happening with it. So I went and represented a client at the auction there. Got a good result. So we managed to secure that for them. Really exciting. Really happy for the clients. We got another really good property bought the other day as well in Phrygian Beach. It was a unit with a big ocean view. The clients were just over the moon with it. It was in that high ones kind of price range. There's not many apartments through Phrygian Beach, especially with ocean views. So to pick that one up with a nice little roof terrace was pretty cool as well. Lots, like you said earlier, Nick, heaps of off-market stuff that we're coming across at the moment. Last week, for us up here, we got out to quite a few really nice off-market properties from Phrygian Beach right up to Noosa. Clients that are in a more of a higher price range, and just seeing the abundance of off-market properties available at the moment. It's a bit of a trend that we're seeing, which is cool. Hopefully we can pick up something for them pretty soon. That's probably the most important things that we've been working on over the last week. What else? A few other deals that we've done. Hugo's had his hands full with a bunch of properties that he's been trying to negotiate on in the investment side of things. How have you been going with that, Hugo?
Yeah, going well. Got a few investors that are actively looking at the moment, and we're negotiating on a few properties with them. Again, some really good agents that we've been dealing with that are open to having a conversation, and they're transparent and straightforward in terms of what their vendor is after, and so are we in terms of what our buyers looking for. So it's about trying to find something that suits, right? In some of the markets that we're in, we're seeing a slight increase in days on market. So where we may have been seeing properties having an open home on Saturday and they'd probably be sold by Monday. In some cases, we're having a second weekend of open home. So I think that leads into those off markets as well. People don't want to have to go through a couple, 3 weekends of open homes. If we've got a good buyer that's ready to go and the seller is not wanting to go through that, then it's win-win for everyone. That's what we're finding in these negotiations at the moment.
Yeah, it's been a really good market for us, particularly over the last 2 or 3 weeks doing what we're doing. And a lot of people looking to take advantage of a market that might be just pulling back a little bit across the board.
Yeah. I think the data shows it, I guess, and there's no hiding behind that in terms of auction clearance rates have dropped. Days in market, like I mentioned, have increased. The data isn't everything, and that's the benefit of us being on the ground and actually talking to the agents, attending the open homes, seeing what's actually happening on the ground. It's not all doom and gloom. It hasn't ground to a halt, as Nick has mentioned, and so have you, Jason. There's still plenty of people out there. There's still busy open homes. There's still people needing to sell their homes and people wanting to buy homes. It's just a different type of dynamic. Again, those relationships are what's important, and working closer with the selling agents, because ultimately they're looking to get the best possible outcome for their vendor. So are we trying to get the best possible outcome for our buyer. And in these markets, it works really well because we work even closer together than we normally do.
Yep.
In Brisbane, I think it's quite clear now that what we consider the prestige market, and let's just say I consider that 5 million and above. There's a group of buyers out there constantly in the market looking in Brisbane, Southeast Queensland, because they can see value and they can see opportunity. It's obviously a very livable city, all those sort of things. And there hasn't really been a downturn at all in that end of the market. I think you've got a group of smart buyers out there just waiting for the right opportunity, whether it be on market, off market. Seen several really high quality units come onto the market in Brisbane on the river and those sort of areas around the city that are just fantastic units, and they're not lasting that long. And you can tell it there's a group of buyers out there actually waiting for these really high quality properties to come on the market. For that end of the market, it's still a really exciting time, and it hasn't shown any sign. I mean, the auction, Ray White auctions last weekend, where they went for their prestige, auction day, they had 100% clearance. They may have selected specifically the ones they thought were going to sell, but I think it's still a good sign that in that prestige part of the Brisbane market, there's still plenty of activity out there. It's still going along really well.
Yeah, it is still ticking along positively. It was actually the end of our quarter yesterday, day before, and it's been a really strong quarter for us. And we finished the quarter quite even stronger than what we started. So it'll be interesting to see how that trend continues in the next couple of weeks, couple of months moving forward.
Yeah, it's been a great first quarter for us. I think just speaking for the Brisbane business has been fantastic. I think we're ahead of where we hoped we'd be, and looking at what we've got coming up, it doesn't show any sign of slowing down across all sectors of the market. It's really positive, and yeah, we need to continue what we've done in the first quarter.
For sure.
I think maybe just touching on something that's very topical and very timely. We had a national address by the Prime Minister last night, which, it doesn't happen very often, but it certainly just highlights that we need to be conscious of what's happening. Obviously, trying to do what's best for the greater good, save on fuel and all the other suggestions. That's at a high level. It's not property related in particular, but I think it's just important to have a finger on the pulse as to what's happening around the world as well. It hasn't in the past had major impacts on the property market. And in fact, as I've spoken about before, after every single crisis, we see a strong, everyone was predicting a huge property crash after the GFC, and the same thing again during COVID, and that hasn't happened. So yes, potentially some more challenging times economically and financially for all Australians, but the property market is one of, if not the most resilient and safer havens for our investments, especially during these times. So definitely a strong bet there.
And definitely a good reminder for us to make sure we keep on top of what's happening in the market, how certain segments and sections of the markets behaved last time through COVID, on the downturn and on the uptick as well, just so that we're at the forefront so we can make some good purchases for our clients, whatever happens. Well, that's probably about it.
Happy Easter, everyone. We'll still be working. Easter Saturday is still a work day, so we'll be out and about. But yeah, enjoy the Easter break and stay safe.
Yep. Happy Easter. Thanks for everyone for listening. Don't forget to follow the podcast Around the Grounds on Spotify. See you next time.